Hello my darling sisters, it's Rachel again, and this video I want to share some things with you that are really kind of I've been thinking about them for a couple of days now, and I really feel that it's the time for me to come and bring them to our table. And in this video I want to talk about feminine presence, feminine essence again, and we could say that that's another in my series of the feminine essence series. And I want to talk about vulnerability, but I also want to talk about the wounded feminine. So in some ways this could be the first video of our wounded feminine series, because I've got so much to say about the wounded feminine. Okay, so as I say, this has been it's a difficult message, and I've been thinking about this for a number of days now, and I'm just feeling that the time is right to bring this to us, because there are things that need to be said about the wounded feminine. So the first thing I want to just encourage our hearts, as always, and say that you and I, we are beautiful feminine beings in our hearts. That is where it is at, and I want to endorse that in you, and I want to encourage you, and I want to raise you up and lift you up in your beauty and your glory in your heart. And this is really important, because once we start to think differently about ourselves, we're kind of ready then to understand a little bit more about how the feminine has been so deeply wounded. Now, we've all been wounded as girls and women, and many of us have been through some terrible things, and our bodies have been violated against. And for all of us that have had their bodies violated against, that has caused a feminine wound for sure. But actually, for those of us who have not had any kind of physical or sexual abuse, we're still wounded in our feminine. And because this wounded feminine goes very deep. It's born into our souls, and the sense of woundedness in the feminine has actually passed down through the generations, from mother to daughter, mother to daughter, mother to daughter. And we are sitting inside of a legacy of wounded feminine. And it's time to look at this, and it's time to address it. And as well as the inheritance of the legacy of it, we're also sitting in our own sense of wounded feminine. Each and every single one of us has received a blow to our inner she, our feminine core, our wounded self. And I want to talk a little bit more about how that occurs in a later kind of video. We're going to go into that in a bit more depth. So I really just want to talk in this video about what that means, and how that kind of operates inside of us, and what the effect is. So I've been thinking about this so much, and I've come to the idea now, the realization that it's all to do with our expression of our vulnerability. You see, the feminine is in essence the vulnerability of inside ourselves. The two are intertwined. Our femininity is a very vulnerable thing. And it's supposed to be vulnerable. It's because it is such a precious gift. And our femininity, our feminine essence is held closely in our hearts, like we said before, and it's expressed on the outer she, exactly like we said in my previous video. And it's that in that process of getting it from our inner she to our outer she, that is the place in which we step into a vulnerability. And if we've got something coming into our vulnerability at that spot, and it causes a wound because of something negative happening, and our vulnerability is damaged in that moment, then we could say that our feminine has been wounded. And I'm just going to put some legs on that a little bit as well and say that it's anything to do with the times that we've felt or received a message, directly or indirectly, that we've not been enough in any context. So we've put ourselves out there and we've been told by one means or another, sometimes not even in words, you're not enough, you're not thin enough, you're not good enough, you're not strong enough, you're not tall enough, you're not pretty enough, you're not successful enough, you're not talented enough, all of those things, you're not enough. All of those things, when we have put all of our inner resource out there to be kind of it's almost as though we've taken our inner she and we've put it out of ourselves. We put it on the table for somebody to catch that vision of our heart, and it's been rejected. And that's what it feels like. That's the vulnerability of our inner she, and that's the vulnerability I'm talking about. And somebody has come back and said, not good enough. And that is the part of us that gets wounded. And that is what I mean when I talk about the wounded feminine. And it happens again and again and again and again. And it is a lifelong thing that we have to deal with. And I'm really feeling now that it's time to recognise the process of what goes on in our hearts, and the process of how we can deal with these things, and how we can really get them out there, and how we can stand with each other to rise and raise each other up so that we can minimise the effects of this wounded feminine. And of course, what's been happening over many generations is daughters who grow up to be mothers themselves are operating from that place of where their vulnerability has been damaged, and then they in turn come from a place of damage, and their beautiful young daughter is also wounded because the mother has been wounded, and it happens almost without us realising. And I believe that that's coming from a place of fear, because when our vulnerability has been rejected, we kind of go into panic mode. When we kind of start to self-identify with that I'm not good enough, we shrink back. We shrink our feminine down, and we start to self-believe that about ourselves. And then we operate from this place of fear. And if we operate in this place of fear, we're not operating in a place of love and light, because fear and love can't coexist at the same time. So if we're coming from a root place of fear, when it's our turn to give out to our daughters, and because of what's been put into us and our feminine is wounded, we then naturally give out from a place of fear and not love. Can you see how that kind of works? And it's not a fault thing. I'm not coming to us and coming in blame and judgment. I'm just trying to explain how this thing comes about. And I got some real life examples to share with you, but I'm going to save that, and I'm going to do that in another time, in another video, because I just really want to kind of get to the depths of our hearts on this. And I'm just feeling so strongly that the answer to this wounded feminine it lies with each one of us beginning to identify truly what's gone on. And I'm feeling for myself, and maybe you'll find this helpful too, to just sit with these really deep thoughts and journal out how and why and when in my life, and maybe in your life, we felt those moments of fear. We felt those moments of something inbound coming in and making us shrink back because we don't feel good enough, and wounding our feminine. And so we've squashed the feminine down. And so we're coming from that place. we need to really identify this and really think it through. And I just want this to change in our hearts, because we're the ones who need to make the change. You see, if we can make the change, we can change the experience of our beautiful young daughters. As mothers and mentors, we need to pick up the tab of responsibility for change. But of course, it starts with us. So let's sit with our journal. Let's sit in that place of meditation. And I just want to encourage our hearts to just pour out all of our feelings surrounding this wounded feminine, and how this operates in each one of us is going to be different. But I just feel it's just such an important journey that we need to go on right this minute now, certainly in my life. And so this is what I wanted to bring to the table, and I just want to encourage your hearts so much, because I want to see healing. I don't want us to see a gathered up sisterhood that's hurting and in need of healing, and not understand why that should be, and to kind of mellow down in all the hurt and pain. We need to do something about it, and if we're going to do something about it, we need to identify exactly what's going on. So this is where I'm coming from, and I just want to bless your hearts. And I'm going to come back and I'm going to talk about the wounded feminine in a slightly different context, and in later videos. So watch out for those, because I've got so much to say and it just won't fit onto one video. And if you've got any questions or comments, just come back to me, private message me, open the discussion up on our Heart Maidens Facebook page. You're welcome to join there and join in the discussion. And I just want to bring love and light and blessing and life. See, this is about breathing life into us where we've been damaged. And it's time. So I just want us to own it, and I just want us to run with it and fly with it. And bless your heart, sister.